Hey there, Tracy Fear here with another video for Trinity Stamps. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make these glass letters using the Love Dani collection from Trinity Stamps. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, today we're going to be using the Cheesy Background 6x6 layering stencil and the Time to Celebrate from the Love Dani collection. And I'm going to be using the coordinating dies. And what we're going to do first is we're going to stencil on our colors. Now for this I'm going to be using alcohol markers, so I recommend using a water-based ink to fill in your little circles. And I'm just doing kind of a rainbow assortment of colors, but instead of using blue I'm using sort of a teal. And so I'm just going to fill these in with these little pouncer tools. Use what you have, but I don't want a mask on the lazy bones. So I'm going to clean off my stencil and I'm going to flip it over. And yes, I realize I have this quite sped up because it's pretty fundamental. The main thing you want to make sure is that if you are blending circles, that the two or three colors that are surrounding it don't turn brown. So for instance, I've got that little purple circle over there, so I know I need to use either a red or a blue, and I shouldn't use a green. So there I've got my spotted background. I'm ready to go. And this is alcohol marker friendly paper, by the way, because again, as I said, I'm going to be using alcohol markers. And I'm going to do the happy birthday and the U. I'm going to do the 2 on top, so just for something different. So I'm going to lay my stamps out in a comfortable position where I like them, because this is going to be a full panel shaker. So this is a full 4 4¼ by 5½ panel. So I want to lay these out so that they're nice and spaced and in good positions. I'm going to kind of do the happy birthday catty corner sideways, up to the top, whatever you like. And then I'm going to just put them in my mini Misty, and I'm going to stamp this out with my ink on 3 blackout, which is a detail ink that is a hybrid, and you can get it from Trinity Stamps. So I'll probably do a couple of stampings here. It doesn't have to be perfect at this point because we're going to be coloring and we're going to restamp later. But I do like it so I can actually see everything, because there are some pretty dark spots there with the purple. In hindsight, I might have done pink with that instead. It works out fine, but it's just a little bit harder to see the shading on the darker colors. And I'll go ahead and clean off my stamp, but I'm not going to remove my stamp from the platform. And I do have my paper tucked down into the corner of my mini Misty, so that the right-hand side and bottom are touching the sides. Alright, so now we're ready to color, and I'll color one of the letters on camera so you can see how I do it, but then I'm going to go off camera. So I've got my Ohuhu markers, and I've got the CG050, CG200, and CG020 for my colors here. And I'm going to start out with the darkest color, and all I'm going to do is using the bullet tip. Look, if you're any good with a brush marker, go for it with the brush, but I barely have a steady hand with anything, so I do prefer the bullet nib for this. And I'm just going to outline the whole thing, just to the inside, and maybe even a little over the line. Let me zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing, and you can see I'm not drawing perfect lines. You can if you want to, or if you actually can. I can't. That's just me, and that's okay. These are glass letters, so they're going to have crazy reflections and all kinds of stuff going on with them. So main thing you want to make sure is that you round your edges. So you don't want any sharp edges here. We want a nice soft glass. So I've got that outline. Now I'm going to come in with my CG200, and I'm going to come along that line and a little bit further beyond it. So I'm filling in the first line and going further beyond. And you notice that because I used the water-based inks, they're not moving, and that's what you want. So I don't recommend, if you're going to use alcohol ink, using like distress oxides and things like that that don't dry and particularly because you're going to be going over with some white pen. If you are going to use pigment inks, then I recommend using, pigment ink that is waterproof versus a one that is water reactive. But because this is alcohol ink, the Simon Hurley ink doesn't react underneath it. So that's one thing you have to think about when you're doing your mediums. And I'm going to show you an example of one that I did on with pencils instead of the alcohol markers. And so I use the VersaFine Clear ink. But you could use this hybrid ink as well. Anyway, there's kind of my coloring here. So I'm just kind of filling in and shading. Coming back with that CG020, kind of the mid-tone gray, and just putting it in between. And again, just making sure that everything's kind of rounded, nothing's real super sharp. And I'm going over more than once in the deep color in the red, just so that it kind of shows up. And then I'm going to take the darkest gray, and I'm going to create some shadows here. And just very simply, oh, I guess that's what I just did. I don't know. No, I didn't. Yeah. I'm going to take the white pen, and I'm going to create my highlights. And you can see my white pen is acting up on me here. If yours acts up on you, and it might, you can go over it a second time, but make sure it's completely dry and you go over with a super light hand. As you can see here, this is not wanting to fill in. It's just kind of stuffing up on me, as they sometimes tend to do. You could also use like a white acrylic paint or a Posca pen for this, which might work better, just as long as it's got a nice thin, tip on it. And you notice here that I'm rounding that off. And I'm just kind of coming over and trying to make this thing solid as I possibly can. And then I'm just going to come along and I'm going to make just some added white lines to kind of give, more of that reflective property. And then I'll do some a little off to the side. And you can skip that step if you want to. But I really want this to be a really shiny glass. So I'm just making lines. Okay, and now I'm going to add my shading. If you do this, do your shading before you do the white lines. Sometimes I get things out of order. Oops, I want my bullet nib. Oop, good thing I dropped that. Good thing I didn't get anything on the card. So see, I'm adding this darkest gray again, just along the left side edge, as neatly as I possibly can. And that's going to make it stand out and still look like glass. Now, if you're really good, you can shade the outside as well, but I'm going to not do that with this one. I'll show you another example. So here, this is all done. Now I'm going to put this back into my mini misty, back down into the corner, and I'm going to come in with my VersaFine Clair and Nocturne. I'm going to stamp it a couple of times, and this is going to be very, very wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some clear embossing powder over it, and I'm going to heat emboss so that I don't smear that doing any next steps. And that embossing powder will stick to that VersaFine ink. And then also the heat embossing will help it stand out more from the paper as it dries, or as it gets shiny and kind of lifts like embossing powder does. Notice how it's getting a nice dark black. And that's exactly what I'm looking for, so that my sentiment stands out. And yeah, there's all kinds of fun things you can do with these Love Dani. And I did show this on Instagram, but this is one that I did with my Prismacolor pencils on pattern paper. So back to our card here. we're ready to move on to the next step. And the next step is to go ahead and create my 2, because it has to be on there. And I'm going to have that on the outside. And I'm just stamping that with the Versamark again, or the Versafine Clear, and then heat embossing with clear. And then I'm going to color this with a gold gel pen. That's ready to go. And I cut that out off camera. And I also cut out the sentiments, the kind of bubble portion of them, to use as masks, because I want to do this gold splatter here, but I don't want to get gold on my letters. So the splatter's done and dried, and I'm grabbing one of these full card front shaker panels, and I'm using a little bit of anti-static powder on it, and I'm going to lay that down on the card, and I'm going to use some red line, or as Tim Holtz likes to call it, baloney tape, to make sure that that's held down nice and sturdy. Use what you have. I don't recommend glue for this because it's stiff and it's going to be harder to stick. And what you'll notice is that I forgot to remove the backer from this. So there's a backer, which isn't really a backer, it's kind of a fronter, that protects the acetate sheet, for storage and things like that. And in my mind, I didn't really forget it. In my mind, I thought that it only went corner to corner, but it kind of goes a little bit beyond there, and it gets a little stuck to my tape, but it's not a big deal, and it comes right off, so no worries about that. And meanwhile, my front surface is protected from anything sharp or funky on my work mat. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this down centered in the middle of this shaker panel acetate. And I'm going to pull off my tape and struggle with it. That baloney tape doesn't like to be grabbed. It notoriously likes to fall right back down. Then I'm just going to use my Trinity Stamps bone folder to secure that. And then I'll do the other side and just fold that over and burnish it down. And then I'll do the bottom. Same thing, just fold it over and burnish it down. And then I'm going to fill it with my shaker bits. And I went ahead and pre-set up multiple different little shaker bits so that I could have a rainbow of shaker in there. And I'm going to go ahead and pull off the top strip and fold that down. And our panel is ready to go. And I'm going to use tape to secure that as well. And see, here I am struggling with that clear stuff, but it does come off completely. It just got somehow tucked around. But don't forget to remove that, because you can see the huge difference here once I've removed it, how nice and shiny this is, and it's not scratched up, it's perfectly clean. And it goes well with the glass theme. Look at the reflection from my light above. We definitely have ourselves a glass card going on here. So I've got a top folding card base, 4.5 by 5.25. And I'm not going to use the red line tape here. I'm going to use just some regular tape because I hate struggling with the red line tape. I just trust it a lot. But for this tape is fine. So I'm going to add just a couple of strips along the center here and then go all the way around on the outside. And I'm just kind of burnishing that down with my finger. And then I'll go ahead and just pull up 4 corners here. So I'll pull it up and fold that up. And I'll pull up the second one. I'll struggle with it and then try to pull it up and struggle a little bit more. Burnish it again. Come on, baby. You can come off. There we go. Sometimes. So this is a way that I like to do it to help get it even. And then I'll pull off these center strips, because I want something to make sure that the center is glued down. And I'll stand my card up and then make sure everything's all nice and even. And as soon as it is, I'll press down that middle and then I'll pull out the strips. And my card will be all nice and stuck to the card base. So now I'm just going to add the 2, and I'm going to glue that straight down. Simply because, we've got enough popping up on this card. And I could have done it on the inside, but for whatever reason in my mind, I thought it needed to be on the outside. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some of these little Trinity Stamps pearly heart pearl things. They're so cute. And I'm going to use the white ones. I'm just going to add 3. just for a little bit of added yummy. I like the little hearts anyway. So we'll grab a big one here. And that's it. This card is done. So I hope that you learned something here today or might try this yourself. I wanted to make sure that you knew how versatile these are. And anyway, here's a still photo. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.